and a very good morning to you all. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to World This Morning. You are watching me, Muhammad Makhdoom, on PTV World. I hope you guys are doing very well today, and you guys are still on that natural high from the Women's Day, International Day, which was yesterday, and it was a magnificent day. There were so many activities going on around the whole of Pakistan, so I hope you guys are ready to start with a new energy, with new ideas in your head, and you're ready for our show today. And on World This Morning, we are continuing with our dedication to Women's Week. We have decided to continue today and tomorrow highlighting women out there within the working world who have really paved their own way. They've fought against all the hurdles that society or culture or they themselves have put on themselves. So we will be discussing that. We'll discuss their stories and how they have gotten where they are today and any advice that they will be sharing with all of you guys, all our viewers. But before we do that, we do have our public service message. And for that, today I would like to highlight the importance of not littering. This is our country, it's our home, and if you have a packet of crisps, if you have kids in the car that are eating, please don't chuck your rubbish out of the window. I've seen so many cars do it, and it's very upsetting, and it's very very disappointing because we're in the 21st century. We know littering is bad. We know the state of the world. We know that there's so much trash everywhere, so that we need to recycle and we need to look after our environment. So that is the public service message. And let's move on to the news. So the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAE, have approved Pakistan's applications of safeguarding for nuclear power plants for K2 and K3. So Pakistan's application of safeguard for nuclear power plant units K2 and K3 have been approved by the International Atomic Energy Agency. Okay, and second, very important, the foreign players who were playing at PSL, which completed without any hiccups, which was wonderful, and the whole country was behind it, have endorsed the return of international cricket to Pakistan, and that is fantastic. I know the whole country celebrated. It was exciting. Lahore was alive. It was the city of lights, as I was seeing all over social media. So that is our sporting news. So that's wonderful. So let's hopefully see a lot more international players and international matches taking part here. And I think I was reading something about the T21. Is it T21? There's another cricket thing, right? So that is also going to might be taking place in Pakistan as well, part of it. So now, moving forward, let's introduce you our guests. Let's get the conversation started. Let's continue with our International Women's Week. So we have been joined by Gulendam Mia. She is a volunteer teacher trainer working with low socioeconomic schools. She's also a researcher on Eurasia affairs, and she has written and published her work on Pakistan and Russia, and she's also an MPhil in international relations, if I'm correct, and the list goes on and on and on. Assalamu alaikum, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. Besides Ms. Gulendam Mia, we've been joined by Ms. Myra Imran. She is a journalist. She's also the vice president of the National Press Club of Islamabad. Assalamu alaikum, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Besides Myra, we've been joined by Ms. Anika Afzal Sandhu. She is the Chief Digital and Financial Service Officer at Jazz Cash. She's been working in the telecommunications industry for more than about 13 years or more. So we will be speaking to her. Assalamu alaikum, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. So we can all relax. This is like my living room, and we're going to start a conversation. So we'll start with you, Ms.
Gulendam.
Gulendam. Thank you. Now, tell us about your journey, because you're working as a volunteer teacher trainer.
That's
You've
right.
got your MPhil. You've also published. You're a researcher. Tell us about your journey, your story.
Okay, it starts at a very early age. I got married at around the age of 16.
Oh, wow.
And then it was the typical family affair. But somehow, anyways, that marriage was there, and I had to come back.
Okay.
And once coming back, I was extremely supported by my father and my mother and the rest of my extended family.
Okay.
And they helped me as much as possible in getting into education. And they gave me a lot of freedom to do whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
And that's how I started my journey. and I
amazing.
completed my education later from Peshawar University. I did my master's in economics, and I
Amazing.
really wanted to go into this very aggressive field of economics and international trade and things like those. But somehow things changed,
Okay,
and
I'm going to pause you there because it sounds like a very interesting story. So now tell me, at the age of 16, when you're getting
yeah,
married and
yeah,
then going back home and
yeah,
being supported,
yeah.
from getting married for at that age to deciding that you wanted to get into economics and all these things, that's a big leap and
Yes,
jump.
it
So tell
is.
us how
It
you
is.
got that.
Probably it's, every time people, they at times curse their conditions. But I would say, whatever bad episodes that happened in my life, I think it has made me such a wonderful person. And I've learned so much from those experiences. And probably that is the reason why I opted for a field like economics
Okay.
and later international relations.
Okay. So
But
how,
in the meanwhile, when I switched over to education, I started my education career from Beacon House Schools.
Okay.
And that's a wonderful system to work with. I
Okay.
absolutely appreciate it. And I learned a lot.
okay.
And later, when I was introduced to Yamima Mitta, her methodologies were absolutely amazing. I fell in love with those methodologies.
Okay.
So, there is always, after a certain while, you just don't want to pursue a certain career. And like 11 or 12 years is a long time, and then you want to change.
Yeah.
So probably that is when I thought of, I quit my services in the education sector,
Okay.
like in the private sector. And I thought, now is the time where I should go and contribute to the low income groups.
Okay. Well, and we'll get to that
Yeah.
story as well and what the situation is there. But let's move on to Myra. I had the pleasure of, being with you yesterday as well in the regards to International Women's Day. But tell us about your journey because you work, journalism is already a very tough field wherever you are in the world. But being within Pakistan, tell us, how did you stumble across journalism?
For me, it was like I started like an Urdu medium, studied in Urdu medium school. Now I'm an English newspaper journalist. So it was interesting, and from every level or every stage, it gave me a message that anything can be done.
Okay. So how did you become a journalist, though? Tell us how that happened.
It was like, my family was not in favor of, girls who going for a job.
Okay.
So it was like a fight to do what I wanted to do. And for me, expressing myself was best available in journalism. So I just wanted to express myself and, it was like going for a job, and after my doing masters in international relations from Kazim University, because it's a university, it makes you very ambitious. So I started writing, and going to different organizations and giving my CVs there. And luckily, I was aware, at that time in 1998. I got a job in the news, and it was, it turned into a great passion for me.
Okay.
Because, I've tried different things apart from journalism. But again, if you become a journalist, you are a journalist for the lifetime. It's such a fulfilling and enriching profession. That you are at the center of all important things, at the center of information.
Yeah.
And you can make a difference in the lives of others. So that is so fulfilling. So I kept staying in that
Okay.
profession.
Now tell us, you said that you're in your family, they didn't really want you to go out into the working field and a working environment. You chose a profession that was quite male dominated.
Exactly.
In a country where it's quite a lot of male dominated, it's very male dominated. I know my co-host, if he was here, he'd be arguing this point. But how did you make peace? How did you reconcile the two? That, well, this is what I'm going to do and I'm going to do it, but to your family that, I love you guys, but I'm going to do this. I mean, because a lot of our viewers, what we get is that they struggle with upsetting the elders, or, they don't want to, disrespect or, badnaam their family. So how did you handle that?
Well, it is tough, but again, I am kind of a fighter who stays quiet most of the time and tries to prove myself. It took time. It took time for people to accept me as a working woman in my family. There was a time when when I used to go to weddings, and my family members were like, if their girls are talking to me, how do you do that? And because they were excited, you know, about the profession. I was telling them my stories. I went there and I met that person, and that's the story. So they were like, their mothers would come to me, you know, and listen to it. Or what are you telling to my daughter? Please. But now the time is like the same families now sending their daughters to study abroad. So to make a change, you have to be first, you know, stay within those people, and you know, you have to sacrifice a lot of things, because I didn't apply to go abroad and study just because, you know, to give them this security that no, I'm there, you know. So it's like things started changing in my family after that. So that was the, you know, a greater mission for me, instead of, you know, fighting with everyone and leaving my family and, you know, leave everything, you know.
Amazing.
But I think that there is, you know, a certain way of doing things. I mean, it's not important that to become a career woman, we have to upset people and just do things in a very different manner. We can always, you know, respect our norms and culture and go according to that tradition.
Absolutely, and that's
So,
what
I mean, that way, like I never faced a lot of problems, because I was always sensitive what my people were expecting, what the family wanted, or the,
Okay.
I mean,
Now,
generally.
I want to move on to that in a moment, but I wanted to get everyone's stories out there. So, Anika, tell us about yours, because you've been in the telecom sector within Pakistan, and as we were talking about when I was briefing you guys, is that there is this misconception that women weren't really in that field, but they have been there for a while. Tell us about
Yeah,
this.
I think so. My story is very different. I think I grew up in a environment in which my mother really supported, you know, us following our careers. So I had a very supportive environment for becoming independent and following my dreams, and that continued even after I got married. So you know, for me, I think the success has been support from my mother and then support from my spouse. Without that, I don't think it would have been possible to be here. And when you talk about the telecom sector, yes, there is a misconception that there are fewer girls in it. I think there are a lot of girls. And even 10, 11 years ago when I started, there were a lot of girls. I think the challenge is that as you go to the top, girls start falling out, and there are various reasons, right? Some don't want to work because they have family commitments, some don't get support. So there are other reasons that girls don't grow in their careers. But there's no reason why they should not. So, you know, I have had a very different experience in my career.
Okay, so now, so you've been in the sector for about 13 years, is that correct?
Yeah.
Now tell us, with all the support that your family was giving, when you entered the field, was it a very conducive environment? Because now, you know, you're the Chief Digital and Financial Services Officer. It's not an easy place to get to. So tell us about that. Was it a supportive environment or not?
Within work?
Yes.
Yeah. So
because you got the support at home, so that's fine. Society supports you, your family support you. Now let's talk about the work
I think so. If I talk about work, so overall, yes, I had tremendous support from within the organization also and throughout. So it's not like, you know, it wasn't there one time. So I've been lucky or blessed. I would say I've always had very good bosses, and they've always supported me and grown me and helped me till now. I think the challenge comes in the wider environment. So yes, you do face those challenges. People do tend to, you know, sometimes stereotype you. They do tend to say past comments like because you're a girl or because you're a woman. So you do hear those things, but you manage to deal with them, right? It's not important. You don't have to really hear them, you don't have to believe them. So it's how you respond to them. I think that's more important. It shouldn't get to you. Because people will always talk, they always will. It's not only in Pakistan, I would say it's around the world.
And also this is what the discussion was yesterday, about harassment in the workplace as well. And anything that makes you uncomfortable is something, could be, it could be happening to men, it could be happening to women. So now let's talk about this, because everyone's got a different story. You know, you started off, your trajectory was very traditional, but it somehow changed. Let's talk about this, because you had the support from your family.
Exactly.
Now, and that's wonderful, but there are a lot of girls out there, because you work with that economic group, you know, the socioeconomic group, which aren't so privileged. They don't have as much exposure to the international community or Pakistan itself. Would you say that their mindset is changing from when you first started? Are girls being encouraged now to go out there and work? or is it still more focused on boys?
Okay, I'm going to give you a very basic example. I actually come from agricultural background, so whenever I go to my farm, that is where I'm going to see this, explain this difference where things are changing. Like the time when I was growing up, I remember it was still a taboo for a lot of girls from the low economic income group, to go to schools.
Yes.
The boys would still go there because my father was the first one who opened a school there.
Wonderful.
I mean, approved a school from the government, and then he donated land. But now, almost every girl from that small village that I have, every girl is going to school. And I'm
Amazing.
absolutely amazed to see that. In the morning, they spend the day in the school, and then they later come back to do their evening chores.
Okay,
So that's quite a big change.
that's amazing.
And it's in the time, like it's in the time period of about 30 years, although it's slow, but change is coming. One thing I would like to, I mean, if today the people who are listening to us, one thing I would like to request that there is a, like when you see I'll talk on the village level because majority of our population is living
Absolutely.
there. And most of the time those people had apprehensions that if they would send their daughter to a school that is teaching or giving English education, that is making their daughters very different.
Okay.
Like once they go to school, they won't be able to do all those things that their mothers could
Right.
do.
Okay.
But now they are going to these schools where English is taught as a language, I mean in their style, but that kind of thing is somehow coming to an end. So it means that the schools are trying to take notice of this thing, that we should have future students who are in a position to work
Okay,
in
no,
both environment. Like even if they talk in English, it does not mean that they cannot live in
In the-
those households. That's
Okay.
the whole problem.
So that's the thing. Now, this is wonderful that you're saying that now, all the girls in your
Yes,
villages are
yes.
being educated.
Most of them.
Most of them.
Yeah.
So that's a fantastic improvement. Now,
Yeah.
Myra, moving forward within the community. We saw yesterday there's a lot of female journalists now. Do you think we're at the stage? Do you feel that being in your role, you encourage people to kind of stay there, and have you felt there's been an increase in the number of girls sticking within the journalism profession?
There's very obvious increase in the number. If you go to universities, our mass communication department, they're full of girls, very ambitious girls who want to do wonders in journalism and media. And because of the stardom the media now has because of the anchors that we have on TV sets, but again, if you look at the overall conditions in media, it's not very favorable for any journalist. And when we talk about women, it multiplies, like because of the mindset, because of the job structure that we have, because of the progress. So this field is tough because of the kind of work we do and the conditions in the work
Exactly.
environment.
Well,
So
that's
it
the
is-
thing. With journalism, is completely different because you are literally, you're on the road, you're on the streets, you're in very volatile situations.
Exactly.
So even, for men, it's very dangerous. So in regards to that, how do the girls that are with you, how do they come to you and they're like, oh no, our parents are fine, and everyone's very supportive? Or do they come to you like, I don't know if I'll be able to cover this story, how do I overcome this hurdle? What's the situation of these girls?
The new girls, they are very confident, I must say, like more confident than I was when I joined media, because confidence counts a lot when you are in media.
Yeah.
But again, unless and until you learn how to be a good journalist, what are the ethics and how to balance your story and what to ask and how to ask question. There's many tactics that you learn with experience, and we have seen that in media industry after 3-4 years, the girls tend to change profession and go look for something else, because when they see that it's not like going on in an order, they don't see their career growing properly. They tend to leave media. So we need to assess why the retention rate is low in media. They face a lot of problems and they come for guidance to us, and now the issue is to give them the environment in media organizations, and the organizations like the press club or like the unions that they work for women journalists, how to make environment conducive for them, how to make them stay in media, though for those who are leaving media very frequently.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, we need a collective effort to do things better for media, because we are talking about the issues of everyone else and we have this responsibility in our shoulder,
Absolutely.
but you know, no one is actually talking about what is happening in
The
media
issues for
industry.
you guys,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes.
And on that note, we are going to go for a short break. And when you come back, we're going to continue our conversation and we will start with Anika and ask her about the telecommunications sector. So do stay tuned.
Program World this morning, I think, is a must watch as well, because these are the lens and these are the people through which people sitting outside Pakistan can actually see what are the positive changes that the country is witnessing in this current era, and also the softer and positive image of the country.
Welcome back, everyone. And before the break, we were in conversation with our wonderful ladies who have paved a way out for themselves within this society, within the working world. And we are in conversation with Gulendam Mia, Myra Imran, and Anika Sandhu. And they are all at the top levels of their career. And, you know, they've got much more to go and much more to achieve because, you know, people who are on our panel normally, you know, are never done with their achievements. Now, let me start with you, Anika. We are sitting here, we're talking about, okay, we know in the media, Myra's very aptly pointed out, very rightly so, that it's a difficult environment for females, or for anyone in general, but within Pakistan, it is a bit more difficult for females to kind of make their space or to get that same recognition or respect their male counterparts have. Now, as you said, in the telecommunication sector, it's not the case. There are lots of women. There are lots of good environments, lots of good companies out there who support and help the progress of their female employees. Now, we're talking about it like, so that means there's no problems. Like, so in Pakistan, the issues we talk about, the patriarchy we talk about, is it all in our heads, or is it I mean, I feel like we're making this stuff up sometimes.
No, I think they exist. So it's not that, you know, so I do have girls coming to me within the organization, and they do have issues, whether they're issues because, you know, they have issues at home because they're not getting the right support, or they are being, you know, or being harassed maybe by the managers, and that does happen, and that's very real. It's how you deal with it, how you deal it with it yourself, and then how your organization deals with it, right? So I think when you talk about the telecommunication sector specifically, I think there's a lot of good work that has happened, and over the last 5 or 6 years, I think you know, this sector specifically is looking at you know, gender diversity, gender balance, and empowering women much more. So over the last 6-7 years, we've had daycare centers, so, you know, to enable women to be able to work, because working mother's guilt is a big one, right? And you want your kids near you, around you, especially when they're younger. So that's one thing. Now they're coming up with flexible working hours, so you can do that, you know, you can take time off, and so those are the things that really help. Having said that, there are challenges, you know, looking at the culture that we are in, the culture that we operate in. You know, for me, myself, I don't think there's any specific example. Like I said, you know, I got a lot of support both from my mother and later from my spouse, but you know, I can relate to my mother because my mother raised 3 girls. And she became a widow at a young age of 24, and she didn't have family support because, you know, her brother was not supportive, her brother was not in favor of her sending her girls to schools for education. So so more than me, I think she went through that journey.
We should have her with us
Yeah,
today.
you should have her here, not me, and she can speak more about the issues of what women really face in that environment when you don't have family support and you're trying to raise
Yeah, I
3
think
girls.
we need to take your mother's contact after this. But okay, now tell us. Okay, now you are aware of the difficulties your mother was facing. Were you aware of that when you was starting your career or your education, or were you made aware of that later on in life?
No, I was very much aware of it.
Okay.
From
So
a
how
very
did you
young
handle
age.
that, knowing that because my mother wants to give me an education, because I want to pursue my dreams, my mother is facing all this toil, whatever, however they create a
I
problem.
think that just gives you an additional drive, and that just gives more meaning to what you're doing and makes you want to do it more. And I think it's more than proving to the world what you can do and proving everybody wrong, because if somebody's worked that hard to get you somewhere, then you really need to give that back to them. So for me or for my sisters, it's very important, right? So I think that's how it worked for us. So it was more positive enforcement than pulling us down.
Amazing.
So
So that's what you're talking about, the approach and how you deal with
Yeah.
those stresses. So even at a young age, you were able to realize that my mother has sacrificed a lot, so we need to give some. Wonderful. And how does your mother feel now about everything?
I think she's
And what
very
about the
proud.
extended family?
I think she's very proud, and yeah, extended family, you have relatives sprouting up from everywhere. You know, once you achieve something, and I think that's again Pakistan. But I think my mother is very proud. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. No, and she should be, rightly so. It's wonderful. Now, Gulendam, so tell us about this, because you know we're talking about, like you said, it's about your approach to life. Now, you know, I couldn't imagine your story is very different as well.
Yes, it is. It is. Well, I'm not denying that this society, or I mean, it's not only Pakistani society, but generally
Of course.
everywhere, a woman or anyone would face hurdles. Now, our problems
people in America
are going to
striking.
be exactly.
Yeah.
Look at that, something we never expected.
Yeah.
But it's not that such like things don't exist anywhere in the world, and Pakistan is not unique in that
No.
sense. I understand that when you go out in public, yes, there are problems. There are problems, especially from men, or even sometimes women, they become a problem. So it's not only one part of the society. It's everyone equally responsible, but then some get labeled. But I have always, I've worked with NDU also, and that was an amazing environment. I actually fell in love with that environment. It was so protective, and it always helped me. But then you have to go pick and choose.
Okay.
There are certain things that are going to offend people, your society, and it's going to put you in trouble. So in order to avoid the trouble, I would not really jump into those.
Okay.
So I would try to steer the middle course somewhere.
Okay.
Okay, let's say if my way of dressing up, for instance, if I'm going to my farm and they don't like my Western wear, then certainly I'm not going to commit the mistake of wearing something like that. So I mean, if you're culturally sensitive, then you avoid a lot of hurdles,
Okay.
and you find your way out.
Okay.
It's not that you don't. You have to be culturally sensitive, I guess.
Okay, and that means you have to be really switched on.
Exactly, very flexible.
Okay.
Like if I have to switch over into the parda mode, I will when I'm going to the farm. If I don't have to in a lot of ways, then I'll just stay different. So you can do all sorts of things wherever you
Okay.
are. I
That's
mean, the positive, good things.
That's a very interesting point, and that's absolutely, you know, it's right. You don't have to always rock the boat. You can
Exactly.
do things in a
Exactly.
nice way. I mean, I personally like to rock the boat sometimes, sometimes. But now, Myra, in journalism, that's not possible. The whole point is to highlight the problems or the ills or create that kind of wave that's going to rock the boat. Now, in that environment, how does one kind of maneuver themselves? Because you've managed to do it very well, you know. I mean, even when I was Googling you, you know, nothing comes up, you know, there's nothing scandalous or salacious there. It's,
No, it was there. It was there like like 7, 8 years ago when we start. In my career, I'm always very ambitious, and you know, I am always concerned about people around me, what's happening to them. So when I joined media, I was looking at the girls, and you know, there was no one listening to them. So we thought to make a few of us. We thought to make an informal group of women journalists who can, you know, represent them at different forums. You know, it was very male-dominated profession at that time, and it's still very male-dominated all around the world, if we can say that. So it was like when we launched that group, and we faced it's like extensive, you know, social media campaigns against it. It was kind of harassment, you know, writing stories about us, and you know, giving statements from us, which we used to deny, but it was never published. We were like girls, like just joined the media, and we were not expecting such thing happening. We did nothing, so it was like, what is happening? But again, I stayed there. I stayed in the middle of the community. Whenever I tried to step into press club or any politics, it was again that, you know, campaign came to me. Maybe there was some insecurity, you know, what am I going to do? You know, she's taking money from there, and she's like, she's the agent or something like that. And I was like, okay, what?
no, I just want to
be
work.
an
People
agent?
do just want
Yes,
to work.
it was like, but now I have become, you know, in Urdu we call say dheet, okay? Keep saying that, you know,
Stubborn, yeah.
be bold, the slogan we have
Yeah,
for
be bold,
international.
exactly.
Okay, it's all right, it's all right. So it was slow. My journey was very slow. It was like I took 9 years, 8 years, quietly, you know, doing my work and proving that no, I'm not here to, you know, take your space or take the benefits that you are getting. It's like I only want to work. Okay, so it gave me a little space. The support came from the community, and they like nominated me in these elections for the vice president seat. It was like in 2014 we had a conference of National Women Journalist Conference, and we demanded seats because we thought that women are not at decision-making positions in media organizations like press clubs and unions, and it makes hell of a difference. Like if we are at that position, we can like represent them. We can give their give their opinion at the right forum. So we asked them, and it was approved in 2015. Now we in National Press Club we have a vice president, a woman vice president, part of a team, and a woman at a joint secretary. Only women can contest election on those seats, and 2 in the governing body. So we have a big team in National Press Club. And the conference you were talking about, we demanded you know, seats for women in all press clubs and all unions. And we have just heard that, you know, they are going to discuss that in PFUJ election, that is Pakistan Federal Union of Elections.
Excellent.
And maybe it's going to expand. And you know, it will give a big group of women leaders from there, because women journalists, we are all around the country. We are in the villages, we are in Thar, and we know we know everything, and we can talk about so many things, and we can represent a lot of you know, communities. So it is going to give a big group of women leaders if it is approved in the media
And hopefully it
community.
should do, because, you know, you need to provide the platform for women as well. Now, Anika, going forward now, because we're coming towards the end of the show, so I want to start kind of giving solutions and let's talk about the society in general a bit. This is a situation where, you know, the whole world is observed International Women's Day, which was yesterday. You know, on our channel, we observed it all week and more. Now, do you think that this is the way to continue in order to create a space for women, or do you think that we should just now, just get used to it? What are we doing? What do you think?
I think it should be an integral part of throughout the year. It's not just 1 week or 1 day dedicated to women. And I think the way to do it is that it's women who lead this, because you bring up children and you bring up young boys and you bring up young girls, and it is how mothers empower their kids. And I think that's where it starts. The first learning starts from home, and it's the message and the way you bring up your kids, and that's the future. If you want your girls and your sons tomorrow in this work environment and to respect each other's space, you need to begin that at home.
Absolutely.
And that's not just 1 day or 1 week, it's a constant journey. And I think as a nation we are evolving, but there's a lot of work that we need to do on those ground levels.
Okay, and do you think in regards to that, a lot of work that needs to be done, apart from the mother, who else does that responsibility fall on, this education of allowing women to have that space? Do you think that it's also up to the schools to teach these things? It's up to the government to keep giving these, advisories? It's up to, the imams? Like, who is it? Should everyone now be working together?
I think it's collective, right? It begins at home. The school has to take that one step forward, provide that conducive environment, and then once you enter the workspace, it's the private sector, it's the government sector, it's everybody. So everybody has to play their role in developing this.
Okay.
And I think if you look at it, everybody today would want their daughters to work tomorrow. And I think we need to create that environment for them. So it's a collective responsibility that everybody has. It's not just one person.
Okay. And what about you, Galandan? What do you think is the way forward now? It's 2017. We're still having Women's Day because they're still not, respected in the way that they should be. So what should we be doing?
I think education is the area where if we try to work on that, certainly a change is going to come up.
Right.
But then there are a lot of women today sitting at home, most of the time housewives, and it's not that they cannot, if I can go and volunteer and offer my services in schools that may not have exposure to things that the children are getting in a school like Beacon House or in some other expensive school. I mean, I go to these places and I try to impart that knowledge to the teachers and try my level best to do what I can for them to create this awareness. And then another thing which we can focus on is, if the government sometimes, I'd be most happy if they try to improve the public school system. I mean, that would be an amazing, amazing thing.
Yeah,
and then the education that we'll have in that, I mean, if they have a proper, the policy certainly is there, but it's not getting implemented. But whatever policy they are going to make, it should be culturally sensitive. We want Pakistani education. We don't want American education here. We don't want British system here. We want our own system that is suitable to our own social problems.
Absolutely, and I think you're very apt in saying that, but I also feel that, when you look at the Constitution, when you look at the laws, you look at all these new things, they are baby steps. That's correct. No one's saying that we've made leaps and bounds, but it's a movement in the right direction. And I think this is what Dr. Musaddiq Malik said as well. And I thought it was very apt, and it really went with our shows, that we also, as a society, we can keep blaming everyone else, but until you get together in your mission, like, you don't want foreign education, get all the parents to agree on that, because the parents then go to the schools and complain. Now,
because at one point when I was working with certain private schools, at one point it was like every child who was coming into the principal's office after doing their A-levels, they were rushing straight ahead to Canada or the US or some other Western country. I mean, for a moment, I thought the entire country is moving out. And that was something that scared me. That scared me. I mean, this should not happen.
Absolutely.
We just don't want it.
And that's what we used to talk about a few years ago, the brain drain. But we've seen a slowing down of that. But slowly.
Thanks to
We
Trump.
can't say slowing down.
I mean, it's slowing down in the sense that
we have to think about.
oh, wait,
like
wait,
for
wait.
my-
Wait, before you go. In slowing down in the sense that there are people who aren't leaving their country. We've hosted them multiple times. And
Yes,
also,
yes.
I moved to this country. I
Yeah.
didn't even grow up in this country, but I moved here to work. So people are around.
Yes.
But obviously, more people are leaving than
Meher
staying
Sher
back.
is another example. She came
It's
all
like
the
it-
way from the US to
Okay,
Pakistan.
but we are running very short of
Yeah.
time. So Myra, quickly, just a few words from you, and then I have to do my fruit of the day. Anything
But
for all the girls
I'll
watching
like
out there?
suggest things for the society
quickly.
because they have to trust their daughters and support their daughters. That is very important. Environment is very important. When I was like before marrying to a journalist, I was like fighting with things like I want to do job and things. But when my husband just said, okay, do whatever you want to do and I'll support you. And that sentence, it made me a journalist.
Oh,
And I
that's
started working on my profession. So please tell them that I trust you, go ahead and I'll support you. It's very
Amazing.
important.
Thank you so much for your time today. It was an absolute pleasure having you on the show and having discussion with you. And guys, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you took something from that there are hurdles, but it's about how you maneuver yourself. It's about how you handle the situation. So we're running very short of time. So let's go to the fruit of the day, which is today. It is peaches. So they are good for liver function. They assist in the functions of the kidneys as well. They also help assist with weight management. It helps to boost your immune system. It also helps to prevent constipation for anyone suffering from any bowel movements problems. It helps to prevent cancer. It's very rich with antioxidants. It is also good in strengthening your heart. It aids your digestion. It is good for your skin, and it is good for your eyesight. So that is peach, fruit of the day. So with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed the show. We are continuing with Women's Week, so do log on to our Facebook fan page, which is with the name of World This Morning, our Twitter page, World This Morning without a G, our Daily Motion and YouTube page, World This Morning. The repeat is at 11 p.m. this evening, only on PTV World. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you bright and early tomorrow morning. Goodbye.